everybody.
Up.
Oh, Joanna's muted. Come on, friends. Welcome to Straight Up Positive.
Oh Hi.
We are like right on time, guys, like the most on time we've ever been. This is awesome. Carrie, well done. Thank you for getting us to where we wanted to go. And we're so excited to have Catherine Livingstone on Straight Up Positive. Our whole focus of Straight Up Positive is to shine a light on our certified community members. And Catherine is a great example of those bright shining gems out there that we want to call to your attention and tell you about the great work she's doing. She's actually founder and chief engagement curator. We're going to get into that word here in a minute, for the Opal Season Company. And Catherine, you are in Winnipeg.
I am just outside of Winnipeg. That's right.
Awesome. So we are so excited you're here. Before we dive into our questions, because I know Joanna and I have a lot to ask you tonight, Carrie, I'm wondering what you have in the way of upcoming events. So we've got some things coming up.
All right, guys, as always, we're here on YouTube sharing everything. Thank you for liking, sharing, following us, subscribing to our YouTube channel. Go and see us on Facebook. And guess what, guys? We're on TikTok. Woohoo! Snaps. That's awesome. We have having a lot of fun. Tipa's out there making short videos. Go check it out. It's so much fun. Millions of people are seeing this. So we're so excited. All right. Next time on Straight Up Positive, we'll have Amanda Mosher and Dana Thompson from Indiana University Health Bloomington. They'll be sharing their experiences. Coming up, we have some free webinars for the certified community. One is in 2 days. Okay. If you're a coach, we're doing helping our learners drill skill. And then on the 14th, Tipa has a special webinar for our PAC certified community members. Tipa talks with the wish of a lifetime. We have a consultant certification coming up on the 12th. So get your registrations in now, get your materials. Also, later this month, we have, oh my gosh, it's October. Later this month, we have Enhanced Trainer and Coach course. It's on 3 dates, the 26th and 27th and November 11th. You only have to be either a trainer or a coach to attend this. You do not have to be both. And last but not least, we have the conference coming up. We still have tickets available. You can still be a sponsor. And we are doing another session of learning how to use Whova if you have any questions at all. And I think that Shelley was also going to put the previous recording on our conference page. So if you can't attend, there'll be resources for you, and you can always reach out to the conference team. And well, that's all I got to share.
Well, you know what, Carrie, I have a confession. So when you were going through those slides, I mean, this is really like, we do this for a reason, because there's so much that PAC is offering that I work with PAC. I'm an independent contractor with PAC, and somehow I missed that webinar that's going to be on Thursday. So as you're saying this, I'm like writing it in my calendar. How did I not know about that? Wait a second. Okay, I want to go to that. So
there was an email. There was definitely an email that came out. If you need, like I went and combed through that just to make sure, because I saw like 4 different webinars that they're doing for the certified community this month.
There's so much going on.
Yes. Yeah.
So much going on. And you mentioned conference, and you know that I'm like forever pushing conference. I'm so excited about it. I think it's going to be the best conference we've ever offered, or I might boast to say anyone has, but that's me being humble. Joanna has a new look today, and you said that had something to do with conference. Will you tell us about that, Joanna?
Well, It is a new look. I'm not sure if it was a good choice, but it's what I went with. I am going to be talking with a few other PAC folks about the Ruby Gem State at our conference. And I wanted to accentuate my Ruby state when I am in those moments. And so, it's an excuse to go Ruby.
Just to go with a little color. I love it.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll do that. That's a good color for you. So Joanna, you and I actually had the opportunity last month, back in early September, which feels like a million moons ago, to connect with Catherine. And when we did, we were very much in awe of the work Catherine's doing. And so, Catherine, I'm wondering if we can just dive right in with some questions. Is that cool?
Do it. Let's dive.
Yeah, I love it. So first thing, we loved hearing about your background. What you dubbed was non-traditional for most PAC people. So can you tell our viewers what you did and how you began working in dementia care?
Yeah, so unlike most people in the field, I don't come from a clinical or a social work background. So that is something a little bit different. I have a different skill set that I find often complements people who do have a clinical or social work background. So I'm actually a former museum curator and an art gallery programmer. So my academic background is in history. I worked on my PhD for a while, and then I left academia because I really wanted to work with people. And so I've worked in some major museums and I've done exhibits internationally. And so that was my world, was really museums and art history and engaging the public. And I always loved intergenerational programming. So that was something that I always gravitated to naturally. And then I married a military man, which doesn't seem like it would fit the narrative here, but I married a man in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and we got posted up to one of the very northern posts in Canada. So that is in Yellowknife, the city of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And if you don't know where that is, I encourage you to look it up on a map, everyone, because it is a really interesting sort of different perspective on how big our continent is. So we were up there in the subarctic, and it was at that point that I pivoted actually into a recreation department for the territorial dementia facility that's up there in the north. And so it was a different sort of experience for me. But we talked about, last month, I guess, how some of the skills that I had from my former life actually dovetailed really nicely into providing some psychosocial care for people in that unit. So a little bit different trajectory for me, for sure.
Yeah, so Yellowknife, yes, definitely had to look that up. Not a place that I was familiar with, but you had a unique opportunity to tell us a little bit more. It was because it sounded like you were actually able to do one-on-one consultations with Indigenous elders and then provide like these suggestions for engagement. Is that right?
Well, in the facility that I worked in, and I don't like the word facility, but that's just a sort of go-to word. In the place that I worked, many of the people that I partnered with for care were Indigenous elders. So they were elders, Dene elders or Inuvialuit elders from across that kind of broad swath of northern North America. And so that was a real honor for me. And I learned a lot about what care can mean and decolonized care can mean, which is a different conversation, but an interesting one maybe. And so I was in a rec department. Like I wasn't doing sort of TIPA informed work at that point. Like I was doing, like our bingo and our tea parties and the sort of the usual, which had a lot of highs and a lot of sort of getting curious about what worked and what didn't. And it was when I sort of learned more about TIPA and her work that I said, okay, now's the time I think that I want to branch off and be able to take my skill set and work one-on-one with families.
Gotcha. So at that point, that is when, and a lot of folks in our certified community find themselves in this place where they're working within a system or a structure, and they find this place where they're ready to maybe take that leap and go do something different. And you actually earned a grant, right? And created Opal Season Company. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I was really lucky and really honored to get a grant, an entrepreneurial grant. So I called it the Opal Season Company, and it's a social enterprise company. So the company is mission driven, not profit driven. And so some of my profits and proceeds go towards supporting programs specifically for Indigenous seniors and rural Canadian seniors, which are the two sort of main underserved communities in this field in Canada. And so, yeah, that grant helped me sort of set up the company and put together a framework, and also get a little bit of that PAC training, which has been a game changer.
Nice. So congrats on receiving that grant and finding a match for a need. It's always validating when we're seeing that we're meeting a need that's in the community that's unique. And you use this phrase, I love some of your phrasing. You use this phrase, crunchy points. Tell me more about crunchy points and what you mean by that.
Well, that's a phrase I actually heard for the first time at my consultant training. So I actually had flown down to Ottawa from Yellowknife to take the training. And I can't remember the mentor who said it. So I'm sorry if you're out there or you're watching this and you think, oh, that's my trademarked phrase. But it was, referring to some of those challenging, but very understandably challenging kind of points. Sometimes they might be grief points. Sometimes they might be sort of interpersonal dynamics that we see kind of a lot in different sort of situations dealing with families and brain change. And so just applying kind of a creative lens to that, and trying to explore different options to complement whatever's going on the clinical side.
So less clinical feel and more about really matching people and products, it sounds like.
Yeah. So
products and ideas.
Yeah, like I'm really, one of my big values of my company is that design is key. So beautiful aesthetics and design matter. That's partly probably because of my curatorial background a little bit. Yeah. But I also firmly believe that people living with brain change deserve beautifully designed products and experiences as much as anybody else. And I think what often happens is as soon as you receive a diagnosis, and maybe Joanna, you have insights on this, but as soon as you receive a diagnosis, I feel like everything, the aesthetics of everything become very clinical. And I think it's time to look at that and what that means for providing good support and care.
Yeah. So Joanna, what does that sound like for you when you're hearing Catherine talk about this? Is that something that you've experienced yourself, or maybe not so much?
Well, things kind of people interacting in a more sterile way. I'm not sure if that's a good adjective, but you hit on many good points, Catherine, with that. I was, when you said that, I was reminded of the very first time I met Teepa on Zoom live, and I was just a ball of mess. And it was right when COVID was, in its prime, I suppose. And I was being instructed from family members of how to wash my hands, how important it is that I wash my hands, and reminding me to wash my hands. And I just, I really kind of had a meltdown from that, because I thought, well, like you, Catherine, I went to a whole lot of school. I earned a PhD. I not that makes me the smartest person on the planet, but I did learn how to wash my hands, long time ago. So I think there are some go-tos that the majority of society that's their comfort zone to go, okay, this is what we've heard about dementia, and this is now how we need to be with this person. And what you're suggesting with these new, these more creative ways of bringing activity and engagement with people with dementia, it gives people an opportunity to be themselves still, to be recognized as themselves, and not just a nursing home resident, not just a person living with dementia, but hey, I'm still Joanna.
Yeah.
I still like to do unique things that are unique only to me, perhaps. And if I'm being forced to play bingo on a regular basis, because that's, it may be a generational activity, or that's what everybody does in memory care. That's not as much fun as you might think.
Joanna, I know we're definitely going to talk bingo in a few minutes too. That's definitely on our outline. But I want to ask you, because Joanna, what you're talking about kind of leads into this next question that Catherine talked about: relational care versus person-centered care. And can you tell us how you see those two phrases and how you differentiate those two?
Okay, so I think what I heard you say, you're asking me, right, Rebecca?
Actually, I was asking Catherine, but
I'm sorry.
following up from what you were saying, no, perfect, because it's what you were saying, if you don't know Joanna and what Joanna wants, and so, but Catherine used relational care, and so I just wondered if Catherine could dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think we're seeing a slight shift in the terminology, and I think we're still kind of figuring out what it might mean. But we've used person-centered care now for a while, which is great, fantastic. Should we also be thinking about what a relational care structure looks like? And I think the difference there is that it's a two-way street rather than a one-way street. So the value in the partnership is what is being made between the two people in the space in which you're sitting. And it's going to get a little bit esoteric up in here, but this is sort of
No, I like it. I think that really clicked for me when you said the one-way street versus a two-way street in a relationship. I think that's what clicked for me when you just explained that.
Yeah, and I think it's like when you're doing an arts and crafts kind of project is one easy way of wrapping your minds around that. Often we go to this sort of where we're doing art to someone in care, where we're kind of outlining the different steps, and the person's just following the directions, which once in a while, you know what, I like to do a paint by number, sure. But I think the real value is when you're doing, for instance, an art project with someone, and together you're creating something new that didn't exist before, but you've created it together. And so I think that sort of relational care is exploring that concept a little bit more. And it does mean knowing a lot about the person, actually both people, the care provider, the care partner, and the person living with brain change, their personal interests, preferences, life narratives, cultural touch points, and what they're interested in engaging with new learning. So it's both people matter in that partnership.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. That really clicked for me in a kind of a new way. And I'm wondering, Joanna, for you, thinking about what Catherine is saying about something even from art, and I just was thinking about you in conference. I mean, you said you were working with Loy and Matthew, and you guys are creating this presentation that is going to be delivered at conference. And it's not that it's a relationship between the four of you and Joanna, that you are together creating this experience, versus Loy and Matthew saying, this is what Amber State is, and this is how to support an Amber, but you all are working on this together to deliver this together. Has that been kind of what you've experienced with that project?
Yes. And we still have some fine tuning to do. We're about a month out, but it's what's been great is getting to know Matthew and Loy over, this past year. I think February, March is when I joined PAC, and it's what I think makes this successful and makes any interaction that we have successful is that we're just 3 or 4 people, friends, having a conversation and being creative together. And the fact that I have Alzheimer's is like a secondary thing. It's not like, here's the big flashing neon sign. Now we need to put the, all the bubble wrap over around the person with dementia. And then, hey, let's poke some of these bubbles and figure out if she likes, tomatoes or if she likes the color yellow. It's like, no, let's be human and be ourselves and then be sensitive to the brain change, whoever's living with it in whatever state. So that's been, I think, what's made our relationships successful in PAC, what we have been able to create and what we are delivering, which is being, I think, delivered in a very unique and positive way, and it's working for everyone.
Yeah. And I love that you said, these are just 4 friends getting together.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I ever thought that it was something, if I've ever felt like it was something different, like Lynn, my friend, that is living with another type of dementia, she and I would joke about being the zoo animals, zoo exhibits, in certain scenarios, definitely not with PAC. And it's not like that at all. We're part of the PAC family, and that's where we thrive.
Yes, indeed. You're a very valuable part of it. And I'll tell you that I want to dig into Catherine's another term that she used, very caught on terms tonight, but a term that Catherine used, joy trigger. And I don't actually know specifically what it means, but when I hear it, I think that's how I feel when I'm on something with you, Joanna, because you're hilarious and you make me laugh the whole time by your funny comments and chat and stuff. That I think you're probably what Catherine dubbed a joy trigger. So Catherine, what is a joy trigger?
So yeah, great question. So joy trigger is a term that has started to kind of percolate through social media a little bit. And I think it's really helpful to talk about when we're talking about care partnerships, because we focus so much on triggering, behavior that's triggered, or, we focus on so much on the things that are going to set people into a negative or frustrating space, which is really great to talk about too. And Teepa does a terrific job of sort of explaining how some of those, situations may come about. And I think it's time to fold in thinking about joy triggers as well. So what are those little things that actually make you happy? Little tangible things during the day that make you happy. So like a fresh orange, or putting on some red lipstick, or, just putting on Christmas music, or like in April, like it doesn't, what? Joanne, I see you laughing. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, I'm just drinking a little of my joy trigger here. One of the many.
Judgment-free zone. I love it. So I think let's consider maybe folding in thinking about joy a little bit more. And what triggers, if you're a care partner for someone who's maybe in a later stage of brain change, thinking and really knowing about what those joy triggers are for people. And not in an overwhelming sense, like it's always, joy all day long, but really having a good grasp on what those are for people. Yeah.
So, you just kind of transitioned me to another thought that when we connected in September, we talked about, you just said joy, 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 right? And this idea of balance. And I think Joanna had some feedback that was valuable for us all. And it was maybe the first time you, Catherine, were hearing it. Joanna, what about those times where you've shared with some of us in different settings? You had a real response to sometimes when care partners complain that someone living with dementia seems to be lacking activity. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. And this is, I feel lucky because I'm in my own home. My husband is my care partner, and he is kind of used to my sitting doing nothing time, that is just a part of my regular day. What I'm actually glad we're talking about this too, because every year around this time, I start to get really anxious about the holidays and all of the frenzied activity and the planning.
Yeah.
I think there's something that is, again, unique about people with dementia, that it's hard for those who are not living with it to be reminded. Those things that we used to do that are involuntary, waking up and putting our clothes on and going and taking a shower, making breakfast, walking down the hall. Those things probably don't take a whole lot of effort for you, Catherine, and you, Rebecca, just depending on what kind of day you're having. For a person living with dementia, it's now work. It's voluntary. It's voluntary required cognitive reserves being spent on those activities. Those aren't things that I just automatically do or do easily. They require thought. They require planning. Many of those activities require assistance. And if you think about all of those things that we used to do that are involuntary for most people throughout a day, well, a person living with dementia is working. They are using their cognitive reserves to present as well as possible, to function as well as possible, to motivate, to try to, feed themselves or do whatever they can to get through that day. So if you can imagine that work that all those cognitive reserves are being required for, then someone is piling on, let's play a game, let's go do goat yoga. That's my go-to, goat yoga, and I've never even done it. I just know it has goats in it. Or let's go, let's go on a bus ride and go to the zoo. I think that if everyone knew how much cognitive reserves that these now voluntary, that it's involuntary activities now require us to volunteer for, those of us living with dementia, they too would welcome these times of sitting and doing nothing, staring into space with no stimulation, no visual, no auditory, no nothing, just sitting and looking like they're doing nothing. It is really one of my happiest places to be. And there's nothing wrong. I don't need to have a smile or any kind of look on my face. I can sit, I can look like I'm doing nothing, and my husband leaves me alone. He knows that I need that. It could be 45 minutes. It could be 3 hours. I am fine, but I am working. So that is a requirement. If someone takes that away from me or robs me of that, I am going to go down the tubes big time.
Yeah, we talked about, thank you, Joanna, for sharing that. And we had talked about that sometimes in certain settings, unaware family members or professional care partners or whoever may think more is better. And that's not always the case. And I was curious, Catherine, when you heard that from Joanna the first time in September, and now that you're hearing it here live on YouTube, has that shifted your thinking any about, or maybe this is something that you were familiar with, of what Joanna is describing as these moments of stillness or this moments of sensory quiet moments?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, I think it highlights how important it is to listen to people with lived experience, how really that is crucial to understanding this disease process. So thank you to Joanna and to the PAC team for making sure that's at the core of much of what you do. And secondly, Joanna, you had the most beautiful metaphor when we talked in September. It took my breath away, and I'll share it. You said, I'm not doing nothing. You said, I'm a still life.
Still life, yes.
And
that's art, right?
That's art. And so I thought that's a really great metaphor. And I've explained to families before, sort of based on TIPA's insights about building different kind of waves into people's days, right? Depending on a whole bunch of variables. It might be like this, it might be like this. But the metaphor of thinking of it as a still life moment has been really helpful because I quite like a period of art history that is strong in still life. So the Dutch kind of golden age, those kind of like masters, and you'll know what I'm talking about is sort of the black, dark background with those beautiful kind of vases full of sort of melting flowers. They're beautiful and it's a still life. But when you look at what's going on in the painting, there's a lot going on in the painting. Like it is actually a painting that's alive. And so I encourage anyone watching this to Google, if you can, if you can't bring one to mind, but Google sort of like a Dutch old sort of golden age, old masters, still life, and really take the time to sit with a piece like that and think of all the things that's going on, the play of light. Maybe there's a butterfly kind of trembling on a petal. Maybe there's a drop of water going down the vase. There's a lot going on in that painting. And that's what makes it beautiful in its stillness and quiet. So if we can apply that kind of joyful thinking to quiet periods of people with brain change, well, then we can see the value and the beauty in it. And we can step back and let those moments breathe on their own and not try to cram in a whole bunch of other sort of activities just for the sake of activities, because that's what would work for us. I'm not even sure it would work for us, but just in theory, we think it would work for us. Maybe we all need more still life moments in our lives.
That's beautiful. I mean, seriously, I'm feeling emotional. That is incredible. And I think that every memory care center needs a curator now. I really do. They need to create that position. Yeah, it's beautiful, Catherine.
Well, it was your metaphor, so thank you.
But it was the perfect metaphor for a museum curator. I mean, like you bringing that still life analogy, and that was, I think you guys are really meshing and speaking each other's language, and it's cool that now our viewers are getting to see that too. I'm curious, Catherine, kind of going back to designing your organization and how you integrated PAC into that. What would you say, this is one of my favorite questions to ask guests on SUP, is how has PAC changed your practice?
Well, I mean, game changer, right? Like, let me count the ways. I can't even on a YouTube interview. But, when I was working in the memory care unit, sort of YouTube videos of TIPA were kind of like my gateway drug to PAC, which I've heard of several people, right? So you start watching videos and you're like, oh, you just keep having these aha moments.
We usually
So-
say like, I drank the Kool-Aid.
I did.
Not
I was like,
gateway drug. But I love it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so yeah, just a few YouTube videos completely was a game changer in how I offered support and care to the people that I was supporting in the memory care unit. And so that's why I was like, okay, well, there's so much more to learn. There's a whole world out there. So I'm going to invest in this certification. And for me, it's hard to pick just one, but I'm going to say in sort of overall terms, learning about the gem states is really important to what I do and how I help families, because of course, I think people don't have sort of that handle on the different potential stages that happen with brain change. And as we know, it shifts and it's dynamic. But having a sort of a framework on which to sort of hang things is really helpful. And knowing what is physiologically going on in the brain is so helpful to people in understanding how to care with someone. So gem states for me.
Yeah. So gem states and this idea of engagement and how you might shift an engagement or relational opportunity based on someone's current gem state in any given moment. Is that right?
Yes. And also Teepa's mantra that engagement is not entertainment, which I think, they're really important. We could do another whole stuff about that, but I think, that's a really important point.
Yeah. So engagement is not entertainment. I haven't actually heard her say it that way before. Joanna knows I'm a processor, so my brain's kind of clicking on all that for a moment. And Joanna, it also makes me think about your bingo thing, like this bingo thing that we're going to get back to. Do you want to go play bingo, Joanna? What's the answer I'm going to get?
Well, when I first was introduced to PAC, I actually did. I did the every other week trying out the bingo, which is a fun thing we do for an hour every other
That's
Monday.
PAC style bingo. That's
PAC
very
style
different
bingo.
than what you were.
But even that, I couldn't really succeed in the bingo Zoom with PAC, but everything else has been great. Bingo, I think, if someone were to ask me, just based on, again, I think it's a generational thing, but also people living with dementia, this is like the go-to activity. I'm not sure why that is. I'm sure there are reasons, but none of those work for me. And there's just way too much going on, way too much that I would freeze. I would absolutely freeze in a bingo environment, trying to engage and trying to make that happen for me as an activity. So I kind of throw that one up under the bus every chance I get. No to the bingo. I mean, really anything, but no to the bingo.
Well, and you bring up such a great point about sensory overload, Joanna, because, I think about when I worked in an assisted living community, one of the more popular programs, I would say, for the staff was when we would have entertainers come in. And, that might be someone finding their way to that room for the entertainment, and other people were brought into the room to be a part of that. And I think that really is a great example of, Catherine, what you're talking about, of just recognizing gem state and how it could be, okay, maybe for a diamond emerald who is really an extrovert and, weaving in that personality traits and all of that, versus an emerald, or like an introverted Amber that's just, that's way too much. And that's where that knowing the gems and knowing the person and knowing, who someone is and what they like is vital. And the gems are, it sounds like a big pivotal piece for you there, Catherine.
Yeah. And I mean, not to rag on bingo too much. And it's a hot topic on Facebook when you go into the Facebook kind of like recreation activity director, groups. Like, it's a hot topic. And it works for a lot of facilities and a lot of people. So I don't want to sort of rag on bingo specifically, but I think it's a good example of how we apply a one size fits all activity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, we underestimate the amount of sensory stimulation that's involved in something like that, like Joanna says. And thirdly, actually, I'll say, I think it actually contributes a lot to staff burnout, which is maybe another conversation. I'm not sure it empowers and excites the staff. I think it actually wears them out because it is quite a repetitive thing. So to do that 4 or 5 times a week is quite tough, actually, as a job.
Then we have the holidays.
Oh God.
Okay, I know that's a whole nother YouTube.
No, but it is. Tell us what you mean by that, Joanna, because it is. I mean, we think this idea of more is better and we're going to decorate. And I literally went into a place once, those like candy things that, if you reach in for a piece of candy in a bowl and this like claw comes down on you, like, I mean, I've seen some really stuff that just makes me shake my head. Like, no, less sometimes is more. And so when you brought us back to the holidays, and that is so vital as we're diving in. What do you want your holidays to look like, Joanna?
We've kind of fine-tuned them the last several years here in our home. And I'll just speak quickly to, I used to bling out the entire house. I'm talking inside and outside, because we did a lot of things with the church, and it was just something, I mean, there were years we kept it up year round, and we've definitely made some modifications. So every year, fall and winter, this is my favorite time of year. As soon as October gets here, I feel like I'm kind of I got one foot on the banana peel and one foot on a skateboard over here, and I'm going, I am so excited about this time of year, and I'm so anxious about all of the expectations that have to do with anything outside of my home. So, I mean, I can tell you what our holidays look like with me and my husband and our 2 dogs is we were actually supposed to have the tree out already by now. We usually pull it out October 1st, but it's a flocked tree. It's a faux, artificial tree. And it has, I think, white lights, not blinking, just lights on it, and a star or an angel on top. That's it. It doesn't have stuff and garland and I'm just going to say unicorns because that's what most of my ornaments are from when I was a kid. Other things you decorate with. We will put a few things here and there, but we keep it really simple. It's very easy to get overwhelmed very quickly. And, the tree goes in the living room. So it's not like it's the bathroom and I have to work around it, or the kitchen or the bedroom, but it's still a place I spend a lot of time. And that tree with that one strand of white lights is plenty for me to be able to enjoy and be festive and enjoy my holidays. But it is a stark contrast to what life used to be like before I got Alzheimer's.
So I think that's such a beautiful example, Joanna, of where I think well-intentioned people maybe miss a piece of the puzzle. And that is, my loved one, you, Joanna, in this situation, used to put, decorations everywhere, and I loved all that. And now you're still Joanna, but that's not a good fit now. And so I think that when or if people don't have this kind of conversation, they just think this person used to always like this, so we're going to make this the best darn holiday they've ever had, and we're going to, go shenanigans with it, and then, it doesn't work out.
And a nice, all those things that I talked about, the unicorn ornaments, and I don't know if I talked about the stockings, and just all the stuff, those are in boxes. We take them out of the crawl space. We put them in our spare room, and I take them out and I look at every single one, and I decide what, of the few things I know we can put in our environment over the holidays, what do I want to pick this year? I am not robbed of any joy. Let me tell you. My joy triggers are all over the place. I am not robbed of any joy. Everything is, that joy is there. It's just in a different packaging.
Man, I'm always blown away by what you're sharing. Thank you. That you just like wrapped it up and put a bow on it there with the packaging. Yeah. So, and that you still take joy from those things in those boxes, but you're able to say, here's where I can find joy with it. I can't find joy with it in all over the place right now. And that is exactly what I think Catherine was talking about with changing gem states and thinking about that piece of the puzzle. So Catherine, I could definitely talk to you for another hour. Or more, but I'm wondering, can you tell our viewers like what it is that you provide for families, and how does someone find you? How do your clients find you, and what it is actually that you're providing for them?
Right. So, like I said, my company is called the Opal Season Company. So you can go to my website, which is opalseason.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest. All the socials. And I have a YouTube channel too.
Are you on TikTok though? Because Tipa's has 5 million. I'm not cool enough for TikTok.
I'm not cool enough for I'm Generation X, so I'm just kind of like a little bit too creaky for TikTok.
Crunchy. Or crickety. No, that's my favorite Tipa word, crickety.
Yeah, I think that the ship has sailed on that, but never say never. So yeah, those are ways to get in touch with me, and usually people do like a word of mouth thing. So far that's been working really well, and I work mostly with families who are just interested in this kind of psychosocial support angle and building kind of engagement into someone's day. And then I also work with organizations, so care facilities, and more I'm doing webinars with community groups, which I really like, the kind of the periphery of care. So we know that people are going to be aging in place more and more. And so how can we meet them where they're at by informing places like libraries, faith organizations, art galleries, museums, golf clubs is a big one. So really kind of infusing our communities with aging positive kind of education, because really it's our job to support our fellow citizens. And that's going to be happening more and more. So yeah, I like doing those webinars as well.
You're doing a little bit of everything. I love it. And really seeing where there are needs and jumping in. And one of those is with these products that you're rolling out. I think we have cutting edge like information, and Carrie has some pictures I think she's going to share. Can you tell us about these illustration books?
Yes, and I like the word illustration books. I mean, essentially at the core, they're coloring books. And I chose that specifically as my first product line because it's something that care partners can often wrap their minds around. So when we're talking about relational care, I want to make sure that it's a product that care partners are engaged with as well. So, okay, so this is an example of illustration book that I've designed. I try to make them gender inclusive as well. I'm rolling out more and more over the coming days. This is sort of a soft launch sneak peek. So I've got, for instance, this illustration book that's more geared towards men, let's face it, but I think those gender sort of roles are changing, but it's all about sort of auto mechanics. And then the one on the right that shows the boats, that's a series that's got kind of like different boats through history, and it includes a color guide. So you'll see one of the pages has kind of like a little sample that you could copy if you kind of just look at that blank page and don't know where to go from there. But then there's another page in the set that doesn't have that color guide. So the sets are designed to really support interabled groups. So people of all gem states and different care partners can sit at the same table and all be able to engage in the same theme together. So some of the illustrations are quite, I'm not going to say simple, I'm going to say adapted. And then some of them are a little bit busier. So there's something for everybody. And then this is my pumpkin spice inspired.
Love it.
That's a one called Sweater Weather. And then the one with the leaf is all botanicals. And then I've got a Halloween book as well. That's always a tricky one for rec people because you want to really hit kind of a content appropriate window that's not too juvenile and then not too kind of gory. So Halloween is trickier than one might think. So I tried to do more kind of classic illustrations there.
Yeah. So one thing that I love that you said is, so you're using the word illustration book versus coloring book. And I love those. Like I feel like I'm going to be purchasing those in my future, just saying. But you also said that it elicits storytelling. And when I was looking at that auto like book, the kind of the mechanical type illustration book, I was thinking about my own father, who's not living with brain change at the moment, but I mean, if he were, there'd be a story for every picture in that book. So it's not just this activity of artistic piece, but also let's talk about what you're seeing on this page and how it relates to your life.
Exactly. And almost every set comes with some conversation spark prompts to get people talking about the theme, and a very much kind of, hey, Dad, I know you're an expert in this. Would I use like a wrench or would I use a screwdriver for this project? Like, just to really, elicit that kind of relational storytelling and relational care between people. And they're all printable. I'm a big believer in sort of eco-conscious products. So I could print them and ship them out, but then that's just adding to our carbon footprint. So you can just buy them and download them and print them off at home.
Wow, that is awesome. I love that. Just when you talked about that just now, Catherine, you said, Dad, would you use this tool or this tool? And what does that do for the person too in building relationship? I'm now reminding this person of, you've got a lot of wisdom there that you're still able to share.
Yeah, I try to hit three main things with the product. I try to honor life experiences. So past careers, past hobbies. I try to engage maybe in some new learning so that, someone might learn something new from a different activity pack. And then also to, celebrate that spectrum of skill strengths and really allow people of different abilities to sit down at the same table and engage in something together.
Yeah. And so opalseason.com is where people can find those products, get those images. I love that you're eco-friendly as well, but also really, I feel like you've thought through so many different aspects of not only gem states, but one person might look at that SHIP page and panic because I don't know where to start. And so having that there or not, I mean, you've thought about it all, I feel like.
Hopefully people enjoy them, and yeah, I'm coming up with a whole bunch of new themes all the time, and I think I may even drop a heavy discount code on the PAC certified community page. So anyone who wants to pick up their own illustration book, and I should mention too that the books don't mention the word dementia anywhere. They're just inclusive, interability, they're geared towards older adults, but there isn't that kind of clinical label anywhere in the books.
Yeah, I like that phrase, interability. Thank you, Justin. That's, yeah. So I'm going to be looking for that discount code. Joanna, I'm wondering if any follow-up questions in our last few minutes for Catherine that you want to dive into a little bit deeper?
I'm just real excited about the illustration books. I'm a colorer. Rebecca and I were laughing last month because they're called adult coloring books, the ones that are out, and I didn't go there. I told her I thought they were X-rated. So finally I got some as a gift. I was like, oh, they're for adults. Anyway, we can say that on YouTube, right?
Oh, totally.
I was really, when Catherine was showing the coat, you had a one with like a winter coat, I think.
Like a trench coat.
And here's where I went. So I used to do those like Vogue patterns. My grandmother and my mom would sew our clothes, and we do it all together. Even when I was too young to do the sewing machine, that was kind of a big female side of the family event and activity. It reminded me of that. It made me feel good. And then I started thinking about, that looks like a wool coat. What would be more comfortable for me now is something quilted that doesn't have a lot of buttons. And I started thinking about how I could modify that if I had it to work on. It made me happy and excited. So thank you. It's already working. Your magic is already working through the computer. And they're not X-rated illustrations either. Thank you for that too.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yes, that's for another YouTube conversation.
Joanna, that was so eye-opening for me when you said that, like adult coloring book, that what you envisioned was something totally different. Like, that's weird. Why would I want that? And yeah, so every day I'm learning from you. And I think it's really a testament to Catherine's product that you were able to just share just now that coat, that image, what all went through your head, that was not just what color should I make this, but it was truly it elicited storytelling. It engaged the four of us together in a conversation. And I know something about you that I didn't know before about your growing up. So dang, Catherine, you should like use that as a testimonial, because that was so fun. That was so fun. Well, Catherine Livingstone, check her out, opalseason.com. Check Joanna out on all things PAC because she is everywhere. And check us out in 2 weeks. Again, right now we are on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of the month for Straight Up Positive, where we are shining a big spotlight on our awesome gems like Catherine, members of our certified community who are taking those PAC skills and knowledge and running with it out there in their world, in their community, in their part of the world, and making a difference. So thank you, Catherine, for what you're doing. Thank you, Carrie and Joanna, for being awesome co-hosts, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks with our Indiana friends.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. I really enjoyed that.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Catherine, and everybody, Carrie and Rebecca. Good night.